guest today with me, Brother Hashim. He's joining us in the studio today, and he's done a lot of fantastic work in the community. And I think it's good to have you in the studio, Brother Hashim. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. The pleasure is mine. I like to be here. Thank you for your warm welcome.
Of course, we have been missing each other for some time because throughout the year when we are doing radio, we have been looking for you, and for some reason we have not crossed paths. But today we are absolutely grateful that you have joined us in the studio, and we got a lot of things to discuss with all of you in the community today. And I hope that you are all also very active, doing some good work in the community. And Brother Hashim, you know what? Every one of us is capable of doing something good for our community.
Indeed, and that's what being human is all about. Just to bring on the table what you are capable of, and for the benefit of all, not only for yourself, so that others can really use that help that you put on the ground. And it is my passion. I've been on community activist a long time since the Somali community moved here. So I'm one of the few people. I think I call myself very lucky. Wherever I go, I have other people who I can relate with and walk with.
Of course, CP, community power development.
Indeed.
Isn't that wonderful? CPD.
Indeed.
Community power development. So all of you listening in right now, this is what it's all about. The community has the power. Now, when I say the community, Brother Hashim, what are we talking about? How many communities do we have in the city of Leicester right now?
To me, we like to differentiate ourselves, and that's the part that I don't like. Because when we're talking, at the end of the day, we have all same needs as neighbors, as people living in the same area, as people, a human. So, okay, yes, we have different backgrounds, and we have different colors, and we have different religions. Yes, that's it, that's human. But at the end of the day, even within any given community, there are a lot of differentiation. We like to differentiate ourselves from each other, and that's something I'm really much critical to as a person. That's my personal view.
Of course, we have different dynamics in the inner city, and we have different dynamics in the outer city. The city of Leicester, and we have the county of Leicester, right, which is the outskirts of the city of Leicester, and totally different dynamics. And of course, the 40 diversities plus that live, most of them, I would say majority of them, they live in the city of Leicester. Would you agree?
Indeed.
And ever since I have been in this country, and many of the Asian community, they came here in the 70s, but immigration here, if you go back, one of the very first Asians came here in this country at the time of the First World War, if not before. So the Asians that came here at the time of the First World War, and then nearer the time of the Second World War, more Asians came. So you could literally say, you could count on your hands how many there were here from that period of time. And they have got their 6th generation in this city now. So that is a long time, from 1918 right up to 2021. It's more than 100 years.
Indeed. If the memory really serves me correct, even Somalis, when they come here as a protectorate of British, there were a lot of people coming into London areas and Cardiff. You can see now 6th, 7th generation in Cardiff if you go back to Somalis. And for the history, the last man who's been hanged in United Kingdom, Mr. Matan, was wrongly hanged, and now the government recognized that was Somali. So kind of in Britain, different people have that long, even though many people just say, okay, when they see the number, But Somalis also were around since that time, and they fought for British Empire alongside the wars like Boer War in South. In South Africa and many other and one of the things that is good to go back and remind our listeners is that the British Empire, when they go to everywhere, including Somalia, there were soldiers, and you can see now if you look into the history, the input of Somalis in those wars, and I think it's something that we don't often talk about, and I thank your show bringing that history to your listeners, and it is something that I've been looking into, and many youngsters now in Leicester, when I'm teaching them about their roots, because when people bully them in the schools and say, look, you just came, I give them the facts, and they go back to the history, and they show that why they are so related to Great Britain and British Empire back in those days.
Of course, there are many issues that happen across the board in the local vicinity, in the national arena, and our local government, our national government, they will create many antibiotics to fix a problem, right? And you and I both know, we've been doing this work for a long time in the community, that an antibiotic will just suppress your toothache, but until you get to the root canal, you're not going to get the problem fixed. You'll be back at the dentist again a week later, a month later.
That's the real politics, and when things go bad, people just coming into numbers and trying to fix quickly, instead of planning and doing real work like on the community and engaging in the level, grassroots level, and understanding how to fix problems. But bless them, it has been like this in everywhere. People always rush to whenever they see and concentrate on the reactions rather than trying to find the root cause of the problems, as you put it wisely on your paraphrase.
Yeah, of course. Now we've had all different types of immigration in the UK. So if I was to not go, let's start at the 60s and the 50s. You had the West Indian Afro-Caribbean community that were brought into the UK just to fill up the factories, to do the work that there was a shortage of work in the transport, in the nursing, in many areas, in support services. So that community came here to fill a gap. And we have been gap fillers in the form of immigration. And then in the 60s, there was a big shortage in textiles. So they brought in immigration from the South Asian countries in the late 60s, and they were working predominantly in the north of England in the textile factories. And of course, in the 70s, this city, Leicester, a huge impact on immigration happened here. The Ugandan Asians arrived in 1972.
I read those titles don't come to Leicester if you're coming, and still I can still relate to the Ugandans, because one of the ways that Somalis are around the world is that we had a civil war ourselves, and we've been subject to that, and many people now here in Leicester or elsewhere, they had to leave their country as a Ugandan Asian when the dictator Idi Amin did all that harm to them. The parallel I'm playing here is that people sometimes they go out from their own home, they are forced to do so, and that's when the immigration itself. You just came here. People don't know your background. All they see is someone on their doorsteps. For example, there are different people in educated, not educated, and all to the people who are the other side, who are receiving those immigrants. To them, you are an immigrant. And an immigrant, it is something that kind of homeless person, and that's the treatment you get.
Of course. You're saying almost like a second-class citizen.
Indeed, because I can only relate to my own story when I came to this country. And it was because of I could speak the language. And one of the difficulties that I had was that they checked the countries that you've been. And I was transited in France. And they asked me, why you don't go to France? And I said, look, I can't even speak the language. I can speak to you as an immigration officer, as I'm speaking to you now. If I were to ask anything to a French person, I could have waited there for long, and I don't know what to say. And this is a privilege for me. I go where I can communicate. It is not because I had to go to choose England or France, because neither countries, I never lived. I don't know. But my point was that my home country, I couldn't go back. And that's the thing I started relating. And when you are cornered into something and someone is making decision all your life, that's what it is you can feel as someone who's not wanted. And I can feel now the immigrants, the people, and on all those policies, when the person never go through, as I did on the system, as a fresh immigrant to a citizen, you cannot appreciate different ways. For example, when I came to this country, 2 years, they never made a decision on my case. And those 2 years, it is kind of mental lockdown. You're in prison, and you're waiting the verdict. It's as if the jury retired into a room, and they never came back for a verdict, because at the end of the day, you are eligible to stay in this country or you're not. That's the question that any officer, immigration officer, nowadays everything goes to court, used to do in their own time and leisure. And when you are in that situation, it is difficult. And myself, instead of sitting down and feeling sorry for myself, I started helping others, because if I concentrate on my own pain, I will not have progress. So people who was less fortunate than me couldn't speak the language. I started being advocate of the people at that time. And this is when you learn the way on your skin and on the others. There's no university that teaches you, because at the end of the day, when I go to immigration, I had to read all the things related to that case, and then be an advocate of the person that you're with. Or next day, I'm going to housing officer. I have to level someone who's professional from the other side of the table, and I here with the person. The good thing about this country, and the truth has to be told, no one will concentrate on you as long as you know what you are a good advocate, you know the rule of the law. Whereas other countries, they will start with you. Who are you to say to this for this person? But in this country, really, the rules are so good. No one will get problem with you as long as you are doing it well and good. And it is something that filled those 2 years my life, and it was rewarding. That's how I started the career that I ended up later on as a community helper. And this is something I always admire, because at the end of the day, when you help someone, you can sleep well at the night.
Of course, we have seen different immigration in the city of Leicester. We'll talk about the country, but predominantly today, let's keep it focused to Leicester. In the 70s, 80s, predominantly the Ugandan Asians came, the Asians from Malawi came, And then starting early 92 onwards, the Somali community came from Holland, from France, as you mentioned, from Sweden. This was immigration that they were stateless or they went to seek asylum in these countries due to the war-torn issues that were happening in the time of General Aidid in Somalia at that time. And in the early 90s to where we are today. So it's almost 30 years, I would say.
Can I go back that?
But prior to that, we talked earlier on about the very early Somalis that came to Cardiff. In fact, today...
Or Liverpool and
East
London.
East London, in Camden, even in not only East London, but in Bromley, in Bow, in
Tower Hamlet area,
in right up to Camden, and we have had a lot of Somalis now. Their third generations are born there in that area. So the biggest Somali community would be in Cardiff today, wouldn't it? After Cardiff would be London, or would it be London? Which one is it?
Number-wise is London.
London, because, and then after that is Cardiff.
Even the Cardiff now...
and Bristol.
Other cities beat, like Birmingham, like Manchester, because the biggest the city is, the people can get more services.
Of course.
As a very historic way, Cardiff
is number one.
That's the number one.
For all of you who are listening in right now, the Somali community was evident in Cardiff long before the 90s, as Brother Hashim had mentioned earlier on. And the Somali community was involved with many of the British war efforts, right up to the Boer War in South Africa, right? So guys, here we go again. Knowledge is power. Your data, your knowledge is going to take you very far, right? So next time you are with a Somali brother and you are from India or you're from another country, you got to tell him all these facts. He may not even know himself about some of the things Brother Hashim has told us. I myself did not know about Cardiff. So today you have come here and you've empowered me with some knowledge to add to my right lobe in my head. But which I thank you for.
Thank you very much. But it is something I like to have any brother next to me. And it is ways of, for example, Leicester when we were coming. I was moving from London because of change of my states. I was putting up the family, and I wanted a city other than London. And I have friends here. When I come, I fell in love with the city. And I didn't make twice my mind. Next day I was here in 2000, July 2000. I remember my first ever address is in St. Peter's Road, here, a few miles away where we're sitting now. And it is one of those things. And as you mentioned, the people who were coming mainly were from mainland Europe. They were European citizens, and what the city council at that time called the second migration was it. But they were entitled to reside in the United Kingdom as European citizens. They were coming mainly from Netherlands. They were coming mainly from Sweden, Norway, all those countries. And the reason being, now, because people always get puzzled about why. When you have that British connection, you think always international. If you are educated, because the first generation of any migrants, they think always their children.
Of course.
So when you think your child, you either educate them in Dutch, which is a language that few people know, or you choose where English is the language where they can be international. So mostly the people chose Britain because if you compare, I was...
Okay, I will make it easy for everyone here. So your fathers, your grandfathers who came here from period 60s, 50s, right up to today, the famous one is, I came to Leicester because my family or my friends were here. So I love Leicester because all my family were here. So often people will ask you, why did you go to Birmingham? That's another area in Sparkbrook where I've been there and I've met many Somali brothers there, right? In fact, for all of you, one text message has come to me saying that, look, what is the population of the Somali community in England, and I always tell them, hey, my name is Zed, not Zoogle. You got to check out Google and it'll tell you that. But when I checked it out myself, go on, Brother Hashim, you tell us the figure. How many Somalis in England?
The figure will be difficult because mainly people
approximately
are from Europe, and when they are putting in the statistics with every 10 years when the census are coming, they put down themselves as Dutch, or they put down themselves as Black African. So it is only this.
So that famous ethnicity, which I always fill in there, my ethnicity is human. And they look at me and they don't know what to say when I write human. I say,
Exactly.
My ethnicity is human. What's yours?
Exactly. So number-wise, it will be difficult to tell anyone.
I think the conservative figure would be plus or minus 108,000, which is what I read in one of the internet sites. 108,000 seemed a bit low because Leicester is easy between 15 to 20,000 Somalis in Leicester.
That was very conservative. The estimates are talking about 250,000.
Where?
In all.
Okay, so I think with the new census that will come out in April 2022, we'll have a better idea. But if for the moment we run with 108, out of which majority are in London, and then the other cities like Cardiff, Birmingham, Leicester, and even Manchester.
Manchester, right? Bristol.
Now,
name it that. Now you get all. Even Bolton
okay.
Nowadays.
Now
I was the other day in Bolton, talking to the Somali community there.
Now, all of you listening in right now, you're free to call in and talk to us about what you think. 0116-482-2086, and you can text us or WhatsApp us on 07748-855-055. Of course, it's good to share with our listeners as well some of their ideas, what they are thinking about how community development should be. It's very important that we're all here, different communities. Often, I will tell you all right now that sometimes when you will see a person and you'll say, oh, he's from Somalia, not necessary. He may be from Sudan, he may be from Eritrea, he may be from another neighboring near country, Somaliland even. So one has to really get to know all these diversities so you can differentiate the communities that are coming now from Europe, the Eastern Europeans. It used to be said, oh, he's Polish. No, he's not Polish. It could be Bulgarian, it could be Romanian, it could be from Kosovo, it could be from many of the European countries. So we have this diversity that has to be understood.
Indeed, the people whom I look like a lot are from Eritrea, Somalia, and Ethiopia, those three. And Somalia, to this day, we're only one nation. The Somaliland are trying to establish themselves as another country, but to this point, the Somalia is one entity, and the future only will tell whether the Somaliland will become another country itself. But the point I'm making is Somalis, wherever they are, they might be inside Ethiopia or Kenya or wherever, they speak one language and they predominantly have one religion. So and they look alike. If I'm from Mogadishu or from Hargeisa or from whichever city, some people cannot differentiate one Somali from another.
Of course, they can't. Of course, that is where all of us in the community have to have understanding of cultural values, and we can move forward. We cannot continue today living in this country, or any country for that matter, just going with color, race, creed, sect, tradition, and all those things that go along in a line, which create divisions amongst us. So when we come into a city, of course, we will go live in an area where our brother, our friend, our relative is staying, and that in the inner city may be where all that community is staying. Like in our city here, you know that you can make 5 different areas and be able to tell that this community stays in that area, this community stays in that area, right? So we stay in our own bubble. In all inner cities in England, that is the way. So politically, we start being victims to POA. You familiar with POA?
Enlighten me, please.
Of course, one of the listeners texted me the other day and he enlightened me. He said, Brother Zed, POA is what we see here goes on in the inner cities. It's politics of appeasement, right? Give everybody some biscuits, keep them all happy in their own bubble. Thank you very much. See you next election. Yes?
That's very good sum up. But at the end of the day, I think the prejudice that people make their minds up before they even meet the person. You can meet the worst 3 Somali people that can be in this city, and if that experience shapes you up and say, oh, these people are all like this, it is something I say. I say to always people, individualize.
Okay,
rather than putting a box into people.
Here's a challenge for Brother Hashim. Do I, Zed, acclimatize to your culture, or do you, Hashim, acclimatize to my culture? Or option 3 is, do we acclimatize to the culture of humanity?
I think
1, 2, 3. Make a choice.
I will stick with humanity, because at the end of the day, if we talk to each other,
brother Hashim,
we might like same food. We might like same. We might support the same team, and you never know until you and I have that learned conversation. But if I make mine up before I even met you, Zach, what did that makes me? I never got to know the person.
Brother Hashim is a total team player, and he's here to continue to work in the community, to develop our communities further. Not the Somali community, but all communities, including every 40 diversity here. I can't sit here and give you the name of all 40 of them, but all of us have got to do that homework and understand the dynamics. This data, everybody has to know about this data. This data is not secret, is it?
Indeed. And one of the things that I always fight the corner of the underdog. When I come to this city, I was already prepared, did whatever I did in London. And when I came here, there was a lot of difficulties. And instead of going about everything and just concentrate on my own life, that was a young family at the time, and bringing up I put it into the community. I was one of the first people, myself and my sister Jawahir, we wrote the first report, the need assessment report, because what we see was that the community was treated same as migrants before. There were problems with the housing. There were problems with the school.
Language, acclimatation.
Not only the language, basic things. The people were not even registered with GBs.
Yeah.
And that could not go on.
Okay, here, I'll tell you. In 72, when my father brought us here, and he was a single parent with 5 children, and do you know who his best friend was? His best friend was Mr. Khosla, who knew how to fill forms in. And there was a queue outside Mr. Khosla's house. Everybody went out there to have their forms filled. Just filling a form was a challenge, because we had never seen these forms. My father had not seen them at all. And he needed the help and assistance of Mr. Khosla to do that for him. And of course, Mr. Khosla was not paid by the council or the government or anybody. He was doing it for the love of his community.
Indeed. And I can relate to him.
He was a teacher in Uganda, in our city, and he came here and he did that task. And many people love him for that. May Allah reward him. He's left this dunya. And there were many people like that in different communities who were doing the form filling and everything. But in 50 years, from 1972, next year will be 50 years. Of course, 50 years, we're going to be celebrating that. Once upon a time, 50 years ago.
Thank you. I can relate.
So we have 4 minutes left now. Mm-hmm. So we have to
wrap up.
Start to wrap up and bring to your attention, the people of Leicester, that we have approximately 15 to 20,000 Somali community members living here. I know quite a few of them. I'm meeting some fantastic young members of the community, and they are doing an absolute fantastic job. If you take the whole Somali community and do a pro rata analysis on it, you will see that they are excelling in academia, in business, and in many areas in that 20 years that they have been here active since 1988 to 2021.
Indeed, and I'm grateful to young generation now. The children that I was tutoring in the schools now are PhD holders, experts, working in Leicester University, GBs, and the next generation who are more literate than us are making really proud the community. And this is what it's all about.
What I would like both of us to work together as a joint project where we find these youngsters, let's say with the number of 5 of them, and we drive them to success. We support them wherever we can because we have the expertise, the knowledge of the community. And let them not spend 10 years learning what we learned. Let's give them all that so that they can serve 10 years and fast track them to places, POPs, right?
Enlighten me again. You're using
places of power.
Thank you.
Right?
You're using.
So they then can make a difference, not for only the Somali community, but they will make a difference for all communities. So we need to lead from the front by creating the right atmosphere to teach these youngsters that you are there, not because you are representing 15,000 Somalis who live in St. Matthews. No. We want them to represent the whole area.
I refuse to say I represent anyone.
Exactly.
But I am helper. Yeah. And the only people who represent people are the people who are elected. And thanks God, always people give you back. And I'm very much appreciate that in 2011, I was being MBE, member of rewarded by the Queen because of my community. People really wrote to the office and said, this guy deserves it. And to my amusement, when the letter came through, I said, no, it's not me. And this is the power of helping others. It will be responded to you. And I'm one of the things I say that is, Allah always pays different ways. When you give time, and Almighty always is the sustainer and the one who always rewards whatever the good deeds you do. And I leave with anyone listening today, please give time and effort back to where your expertise lays and give back to anyone. Even if you change one person's life, that will be enough for everyone.
Of course, this is very important, is what we will do for others that will create the happiness for you. Indeed. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to ask you, Hashim, what did you do for the Somali community? He's going to ask you, what did you do for my ummah when you were in your time, in your journey of life on the planet I put you on?
And also, I have to acknowledge also that I had a lot of mentors here. From the Ummah, and without them I couldn't do what I did. For example, when we needed the burial, Muslim burials, the people were there. When we needed education, when we were building our mosques, always we had the help of the Ummah, and we're here to give back anyone who needs that again as Ummah, and we are here to be good neighbors to anyone. And the point is humanity here. And never ever let people to put you boxes so that you are segregated among each other, and then everybody is sacked before you know. And that's the, as you put it quite rightly, differentiating, giving names into different localities. And
of course, yeah. Now across the city, across the country, you have all areas with different peoples that live there. So, Brother Hashim, maybe you and I, we can take the initiative to take different members of the community in Leicester. We can't take all 40 of them, but at least 4 or 5 of them, and make a regular round trip in the city of Leicester that people who don't even know where is Evington Road, or they don't even know where St. Matthews is, and we go and reach out to them. And we have a coffee with them and a biscuit with them. So here's the deal. You bring the biscuits, I bring the coffee. And we go out in our bus and we sit and meet some beautiful people that live in areas that don't even engage with us.
Now bring please a masala tea. I'm tea person.
Tea.
Coffee.
We have here a chaiwala. They are happy to donate that, right? The masala tea. This is these kind of things we need to all initiate. Simple things like that. Just a cup of tea and a biscuit across the table to meet different communities, to engage with them and share our successes. Because otherwise, what's going to happen, Brother Hashim, is all the negative press we're going to read about, which is going to take us backwards.
Indeed. And really, it has been very pleasure to be here with you, Zed. And the time is not on our side. And I enjoyed here. And I'm one of many. There are a lot of good people out there doing good things. And when we put our forces together, no matter which background we are, I think...
Of course, we're all in England now. We're all British. We're not here to separate ourselves. We're all going to work together. Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters, from myself and from Brother Hashim.
Thank you very much for having me.